Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brothers and sisters. My name is Toyris Miah, and today I am taking over the podcast. MashaAllah, we have reached a beautiful milestone. This is, in fact, our 50th podcast. Alhamdulillah, Takbir!
Allahu Akbar.
MashaAllah, I hope you said it at home as well, right? You got to join in. This is an interactive podcast, mashallah. Okay, now, as I'm the host today and taking over, I have two beautiful guests with me. Don't give them nazar. First guest that we have, please introduce yourself, and you should be familiar with the brother, Shabbir Hussain.
Shabbir Hassan, first and foremost.
Oh, my bad.
And secondly, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I'm just going to say this right now.
And thirdly, I shouldn't be sitting here. All right, for those of you at home, you know that I normally sit in the host seat, okay, and you know, alhamdulillah, it's been a pleasure, you know, like hosting the podcast over the last year or so. But listen, just because it's a new year, it doesn't mean there's a new host, okay? So please don't get too comfortable in that seat. Just enjoy today's episode, see yourself out there after, and then I shall resume my role.
Okay,
is that clear?
No
okay.
problem. And we have with us also Brother Sa'id. If you can kindly introduce yourself. Some of the viewers might also be familiar with you from some other shows.
Yeah, salaam alaikum. I'm just here to see Tourus because he owes me some wings. Right? So
I made dua
where
for
they
you.
at?
I made dua for you, bro.
Dua's one thing, but I'm
We
hungry.
can eat some wings together in Jannah, inshallah. I'll
Inshallah.
repay you then.
Inshallah.
That's how you get some free
Alhamdulillah.
wings and Jannah, bro. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, it's an interesting show today, don't you think? Like,
It
man's
is.
taking on. How you feeling being in the guest seat for once?
It feels weird, I ain't gonna lie. Normally the host has control over the show.
Yeah.
And sitting here, I don't know what you're gonna throw at me. I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I'm just here just for the ride, really. But you're right, it does feel weird sitting here. To be honest, I feel a bit nervous. And normally when I start hosting, I'm not nervous. I'm okay. I just say Bismillah, I get started. And I really enjoy just having a conversation because I see it more as a conversation rather than I'm hosting a show.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of just forget that, oh, this is going to be streamed on Infeed and everyone's going to watch it. I just think, you know what? I've got a great guest here today. I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to learn something new, be inspired. And I just take it from there. But today I'm like, you know, sitting here a bit agitated, you know?
Why
And
are you nervous? Are you scared?
The way that you're looking at me, honestly, the way that you're looking at me sometimes, it's just like, I don't know if that's your normal look.
This is my normal look. What's wrong
yeah,
with it?
I
I just
sorry, I
like,
don't know
look,
then.
I'm admiring you. Like, you know,
Okay, fair
I look up to you. I'm in your seat now. Like, you were here and I've taken it.
But the thing is, you've got a better seat as well compared to us.
It's comfy. Alhamdulillah.
I'm feeling a bit restricted here.
Why
do you
And
feel
you're on the hot
restricted?
seat.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we need to swap chairs or something.
No. We're good. I've made a dent in this seat now as well. MashaAllah. All right. So, Mr. Hussain, I'm joking. Brother Shabbir, first question. Obviously, you've been hosting this show. 50
Yeah.
shows now, alhamdulillah. 50
Alhamdulillah.
podcasts now. I want to ask you a few questions about the past podcasts that we've done. Some of your most inspirational moments, most inspirational guests, most memorable moments as well. Has there been a guest that has, you know, left an impact on you to this day? Because you get to have some really deep conversations with the people that we bring onto the podcast, and there's things that are often shared which, when they're on stage or another show or even on social media, it doesn't usually come out.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, you know, you get to bring that out of them. Has there been something that someone who's left this mark on you?
Yeah, definitely. Firstly, alhamdulillah, like it's been, like I said, it's been an amazing journey. So the fact that we're on our 50th episode right now, over the span of the year, you know, the podcast was just, it was something that we were discussing, something that we thought, you know, has to be done. But then, subhanAllah, when we started last January 2019, and we just got into it, honestly, I loved the whole process of it. And inshallah, we'll talk about the process later as well, how we put the podcast together. And obviously, just to clarify, I haven't presented every single one because we have the sisters podcast as well with Ustad Fatima. So, you know, I've done, I'd say about 35, 36, at least myself. But most definitely, like, there's been so many guests that have come, and some of them I've known from before, so it was just quite easy to connect. Others I actually met through the podcast, and subhanAllah, like some of them I've become very close with because of meeting them on the podcast, and I've worked with them after having met them on the podcast or on different things like events, etc. So as always, you know what? I can't put it down on one guest. It would be unfair and unjust for me to do that, to say, oh, one guest came and this person left a mark. I genuinely, after hosting an episode, every single time I do feel inspired. There's no doubt. And I'm not just saying that cliched or Infeed is all about inspiration and I'm here left inspired. Genuinely, I feel like that every single time, because every guest that we bring on has a different story, different perspective, different gems. They don't have to be a sheikh. You know, we've had loads of shuyukh on here, but we've also had brothers that have come from, you know, different organizations, charities, brothers that have done things in their community. So it's not just about having Islamic knowledge. Sometimes I've learnt a lot just through life experience.
Yeah.
A person, what they've been through in life, a person's struggles. So yeah, I don't want to pin it down on any particular guest. I just feel like every single person has brought their own set of, you know, inspiration. Alhamdulillah.
That's a nice diplomatic answer, isn't it?
It is a
Everyone
very
has-
diplomatic
exactly,
answer.
yeah.
So just on that, like, this was like your favorite guest. Who wasn't your favorite guest? Like, was there anyone that you thought, you know what?
You gotta give us an
Just get out
answer,
this
bro.
room.
How can
Because-
you ask that, man?
It's like you
what?
were there and you know what, this guy's putting me to sleep, or you know what?
No, but I'll tell you one thing that was funny that Sheikh Hassan Ali mentioned when he came on. He didn't mention this on the actual show, but after the show was finished, he said, "Oh, Shabbir, you know what? That was actually a really good interview." He seemed like surprised that I managed to interview him, and I was like, "Sheikh, come on, like, I've done it for a while, and you're Sheikh Hassan Ali. Like, why wouldn't we have a good conversation?"
Yeah.
And then he was just like, "Oh, you know what happened? Once I was in Dubai." And I had an interview with the guy, and he fell asleep while he was interviewing me. And I was just like, how can a person do that? Like, how's that even possible? How could you... Okay, the interviewee, I get it, yeah? But how can the interviewer, that's your job, like, how can you fall asleep? Anyway, so no one's put me to sleep, alhamdulillah. You know, everyone's kept me very wide awake. And on average, our episodes are about an hour long.
Yeah.
Podcasts can be a lot longer than that. If you've seen other podcasts, you'll see it sometimes spans 2-3 hours. We don't want it shorter than that. We don't want it longer than that. Why? Because an hour is like perfect.
Yeah, of course.
But that hour flies, honestly. It flies when I get started. You realise that today, watch.
You know when you're bringing the guests on, when you're inviting people to come onto the
Yeah.
podcast, what process do you go through in your mind? Is it a case of we're trying to bring on somebody who's got the most powerful story, or we're trying to bring on somebody who's going to connect with our audience the most? Because obviously, and Sa'id, I'll bring you in for this, obviously Infeed has a purpose. There is a purpose to Infeed. It's not just a channel that was set up. It's not just a platform that was set up. You know, we're trying to achieve something here. So how does the podcast fit into the overall goals, aims and objectives of Infeed?
Yeah, I think just on that Ilmfeed is all about promoting and being positive, right? So bringing positive news and inspirational stories to the wider community, right? And social media is like flared up, as you know. We've been around for what, just under 6 years now?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And it's grown rapidly. And what we've seen is that we need to be relevant as well. So there's one thing of starting off with graphics and infographics. Then it was these short clips that were going even more viral. But then as time has gone on, it's about these podcasts. Yeah, podcasts will come in, and there was a massive demand. And that's why you've seen a lot of people who are listening to the podcast themselves, because they feel that they take benefit from it and they need it in their lives, right? And it's a wide range as well. I'm guessing you probably met students in universities to sisters at home who just want to listen to it while they're doing a bit of work, professionals on their way to work. So yeah, I think that's where it kind of collaborates, because content is key, right? And for Ilmfeed to be relevant in today's society, in this day and age, we need to be at the forefront in terms of technology, in terms of ideas, in terms of creativity. I think that's key. And I think that's what we want to be. We want to make sure that we're at the forefront. We're number one. That's our target and that's our aim, inshallah.
Inshallah. What do you think we're tackling here, though? Because obviously, you know, it's all good to push out inspirational stories, all good to push out a Muslim narrative. But obviously, I the way I see it is we're tackling a lot of the issues that we face in society. Ilmfeed doesn't just push out these positive stories. We're also launching charitable campaigns. We're also inspiring Muslims to be Muslims.
Yeah.
You know, one of the recent guests that we had on Dr. Haifa Yunus, mashallah, the podcast that we released there, I think some of the comments that we've received back on the different platforms that we've pushed out on have been truly inspirational and beautiful. You've seen people who have come around and said, "Do you know what? I wasn't really focusing on the Quran, but after listening to this, I'm now focusing more on the Quran. You've had a variety of responses. Have you come across any comments in the past that have really stood out to you from any of the podcasts that you've done in the past?
Yeah, definitely. That's the beautiful thing about the podcast is, like you said, it's not just about sending out a positive. Yeah, all of that is great, but because every guest is unique and because we're covering a range of themes and topics, I feel like one unique thing about our podcast is that there's always something practical to take away at the end of it. So because we've had, like Dr. Haifa, for example, we've had many other Quran reciters in the past. Just the other day I got a message on Instagram from a brother who watched our episode with Osman Bustansi, Qari Osman. He's from Turkey, right? And that video, actually that clip of him did really well. In a number of days it hit over 100,000. The Ottoman method of memorizing the Quran.
Yes.
Did really well, and subhanAllah, a lot of people were inspired by that to memorize. So anyway, this particular brother messaged me and he said, I don't know, he must have thought I was Turkish as well here, but he was like, brother, so I watched that episode, it was amazing, and I want to move to Turkey to memorize the Quran the Ottoman way. And I was like, whoa, that's like a big move to make,
big step, mashallah.
That's a big step. And he goes, I want to memorize the Quran, I want to move to Turkey, can you please tell me where in Turkey I can go? And I was just thinking, I don't know, man, just ask, Ertugrul or something. I was like, I had no idea about Turkey. Alhamdulillah, I've been there, beautiful country, beautiful place, beautiful people, but I don't know much about it. Anyway, so he was just like, but do you see, he's ready to literally pack his bags and move to Turkey just to memorize the Quran. And for me, I feel like, how amazing is that a podcast isn't just a form of entertainment, a form of passing your time for an hour. Rather, it's something that by the end of it, we're actually touching people to the extent that they're willing to memorize the Quran. How amazing is that?
Not only memorize Quran, but move to another country to memorize the Quran.
On that note, I've mentioned this one before on the podcast with Ustad Asim Khan, where so I went for an event to speak at an event in Liverpool, and when I got there, this one brother came up to me. And he was really happy, and he's like, "Assalamu alaikum, really nice to meet you." And I was like, "Yeah, likewise." And he said, "I just want to thank you." And I said, "Thank me for what? What have I done? I've never met you before." And he said, "Listen, I listened to your podcast with Ustad Asim. This is one of the first ones we did, one of the first 5 episodes with Ustad Asim Khan, and we spoke about studying Arabic language, the Quran, and things like that." And and he said, I listened to that, and obviously Ustad Asim, he studied in Egypt, in Cairo, so he said, even though I'm a university student, that summer, so he listened to it last year, he said basically the last summer, he packed his bags, he went to Egypt for summer, after listening to that podcast, and he learned Fusha Arabic in that one summer. He came back and now he speaks fluent Arabic. Why? Just because he listened to that podcast and he was so inspired. SubhanAllah. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, wow, man, like that is, you actually did that. Listening to the podcast, that was the big push for me. That was a big push, and I went there and I memorized and I learnt the language. And see, for me, that's just so valuable for me. So that's just priceless, and that's what drives me to continue, and that's what drives all of us here at Infeed to alhamdulillah push out this content. And you just never know what piece of content will touch someone, and we've seen that from the comments, we've seen that from the feedback that we've got.
Do you know what I really want to know? 2 things. One, how did you understand the brother in Liverpool with their strong accent? And true, did he still have the accent when they were speaking Arabic? No, mashallah. Alhamdulillah. Do you know what? These podcasts have been reaching far and wide. And the beautiful thing is, we know of some stories where, it's impacted people in one way or another, but there's so many more that we probably still haven't even heard. People who have probably started praying Salah again. I remember you mentioned Ustad Asim. No, sorry. It wasn't Ustad Asim. It was Brother Tufel from Islamic Relief. His podcast had a huge impact on so many people, even myself. Where he was saying, if you really want something... and you're not praying tahajjud for it, you really don't want it. Like, if you really seriously want something, get up and pray tahajjud.
Exactly.
And I saw that video and that podcast being spread countless times. Like, it was just the next thing on your newsfeed as you were scrolling through Instagram, Facebook, whatnot. So alhamdulillah, we've had some people who have genuinely impacted our listeners in a truly beautiful way.
Talking about reach, like obviously we're here, we're in East London,
Yeah.
we're recording in our studio here, and we put it out. Alhamdulillah, our team behind the scenes, editing and everything else do a great job. And
that was a secret. Yeah, we weren't supposed to tell anyone our location, but
location.
Yeah.
I think
Come
it's
on,
a bit
man.
obvious.
Yeah. A bit obvious, but anyway, you know. But the amount of people I just see like around, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just going to record a podcast." And I'm like, "Oh, Infeed, you're based here." Are you? You know? I'm like, "Yeah, top secret." Yeah. So the fact that we can record here, alhamdulillah, get some guests down, and then put it out, and the reach is amazing. Like this is what I always try and push out to people that are on social media trying to put out content and videos. It's just let that fact inspire you that you can sit at home and put stuff out, and you can literally be inspiring someone on the other side of the world. So recently I just got back from Malaysia, as you guys know, and I was updating some of you guys like whilst I was in Malaysia. It was so funny. Like it's amazing that I got to meet brothers just because of this podcast. So I was walking in the old market in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and this one brother stops me and he's like, "Oh, bro, you from Ilmfeed podcast, yeah?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Where are you from?" He goes, "I'm from Perth, Australia." I was like, "Perth, Australia, we're meeting in Malaysia. I'm from London, and what connected us was the podcast." He's like, "Yeah, I love it. Us brothers in Australia were inspired by your work, etc." Same place, I met another brother from from Holland.
Okay.
And then obviously in the masjid, when I went to a beautiful masjid, the Islamic University of Malaysia's masjid, 3 brothers there from India, who came up to me. Sheikh Yasir Qadi gave the khutbah. I went to meet Sheikh Yasir Qadi, and we just bumped into each other there. And they were like, they were literally showing me. We were just watching a video right now on Infeed. They literally showing
the khutbah.
I hope not. I hope Ilmfeed videos are not distracting you during the khutbah. Okay, that's wrong. Don't do that. But yeah, it's like literally just watching it. Hopefully before the khutbah, and they're just saying like how they have so many brothers and sisters in India watching it. It's like India, Holland, Australia, Malaysia. It's amazing how the reach is there, and they're literally saying like, those same brothers from India were saying that how they're involved in the university doing dawah work, saying that they're inspired by Infeed's dawah and they're trying to do something similar. So alhamdulillah, just that, reaching out. And obviously, look, we don't do things to become famous and reach out to people. That's not the purpose. But the intention is that, I'm sure when the Prophet ﷺ, when he was giving dawah, he didn't have a vision, I just want to give dawah to the people of Mecca, and that's it. That developed over time. Yeah, initially you have to start with your locality. So you study the seerah, you will see Prophet ﷺ, his vision initially, right, was, okay, let me just invite my close friends and family. Let me invite the people of my tribe. Let me welcome the people of my community. But over the years, you will see, just studying the seerah, is that had to develop where he's now inviting people from other tribes who are coming during the time of Hajj to Mecca, and he's trying to allow Islam to spread. We know the famous story of Taif. He went outside to a different town. It wasn't successful on that occasion. Came back then, obviously Medina. Then you'll see he started writing letters to kings. Why was he doing that for? Why was he writing to the king of Abyssinia, the king of Persia, the king of the Romans? He's trying to spread. He's got this vision that it's not that I want Islam to be well known. I want my name to be known across the lands. It's not that. It's the da'wah. It's the message. And I feel like with Ilmfeed, with whatever it is you're doing out there, you need to have not a small vision, because it doesn't work like that today. You can't have a small vision. I just want to reach out to a few people here. That's good. That's a starting point. But you need to have a bigger vision than that.
Exactly.
You need to reach out to
How
as
would
many
you
people.
advise people to have that bigger vision and plan for it?
It depends. Look, not everyone is into social media. I'm not saying social media is the only way. What I genuinely believe is that social media is the language of the people today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, he says that وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ, that we didn't send any messenger except with, and if you just look at the Arabic in this, he didn't say with the language of the people. He said with the lisan, the tongue of the people, showing how intimate it was, that they understood each other, not just in terms of the language, but in terms of the lingo, in terms of the appearance, in terms of everything. It was welcoming. Right?
Yeah.
So every messenger that was sent, that's what Allah says, وَإِلَىٰ عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودًا, that to the people of Ad we sent their brotherhood. Brother. Look how close it was.
Yeah.
Because if you just sent a random... So if the Prophet ﷺ was not sent to the people of Arabia, he was sent to, you know, the people of Abyssinia. Language is off. They won't understand each other. Appearance, culture, everything is off, right?
Yeah.
So they would not understand each other. It wouldn't work. So he sent to the perfect people who understood him. So likewise, what I'm trying to say is that social media is our language now.
Yeah.
There's no denying it. Just look at the stats. Look at the amount of people who are using Instagram on a daily basis. The amount of people who view Snapchat, you know, every few seconds. How many? Just read the stats. How many snaps go out every few seconds, right? This is what the world. And there was a time where we could say it's just youngsters who are using. So it's not a thing to do with the youngsters anymore. I'm telling you, like everyone of all ages has a phone.
Yeah.
You look at the world population and look at the percentage of those people that are using social media. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many people are using it. So this is, for me, this is our language. So if you're not tapping into social media, then for me it's like you're just missing out on a huge chunk of people who you could reach out to. So I'm not saying that, you know, if you're not into social media, that there's no way of doing da'wah. Of course there is. It's been done for years, for centuries, for decades, right? What I'm trying to say is that I genuinely believe this is one great way. And what I would also advise is that it doesn't just have to be to do with Islam per se. Like, you know, you don't have to be a scholar to give da'wah. You have to be careful what you're pushing out. So you shouldn't, if you're not trained or you're not qualified, you shouldn't be making videos about certain issues or topics that you should leave to the people of knowledge, right? But small things, you know, things like, for example, universal things like giving in charity, being kind to your neighbor, you know, doing something nice for your parents, things like that. You don't need to be a scholar to understand those things. Yeah. So to make a video about that, being creative and making a nice video about your mother, your father, about being good to neighbors, a reminder video, you know, some what they call, like these small skits and those types of videos. Yeah. Short films. Yeah. 5 Wings or something like that. Yeah. Like these things is the way forward for me. Anyway, personally, that's what I'm trying to say.
Now, I think that's beautiful advice for those, especially for those who are confident enough to, you know, put themselves out there, even if it's just writing a post, to put their name to a post and say, this is what Islam is, this is what my religion teaches me. And for those who are not so confident in attaching their name to a dawah-centric post, right? To one that's basically preaching Islam or giving dawah to especially non-Muslims. We have a lot of listeners who we have non-Muslim listeners, and we also have listeners who may have non-Muslim colleagues, friends, neighbors, etc. And I think they are utilizing Infeed podcasts and content to give dawah to their non-Muslim colleagues and neighbors. And when we say dawah, I don't even think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Infeed was set up with the purpose of getting people to accept Islam as their religion. I think one of the aims is to get people to just accept Islam, that this is Islam, not what this news outlet is telling you and that news outlet funded by this multi-billionaire is telling you, but this is the true nature of Islam, this is the true nature of Muslims. Sa'id, how would you advise those who are not confident enough to make their own skits, to not put out their own, you know, short posts about what Islam is? How would you advise them to use, number one, the content that Infeed puts out, and number two, their own behavior as a Muslim to show their non-Muslim colleagues, neighbors, etc., who they are as a Muslim and what Islam teaches them?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point that you both mentioned, right? And I think Infeed was set up not to be a dawah platform per se. It was to try and tackle the misconceptions about Islam. And because there were so many misconceptions, there was a lot of negativity in the media. So one way of tackling it, and alhamdulillah, there are a number of organizations who are trying to tackle it, but it comes across in a negative way, right? Which can be like demonizing and very negative, and it can put people off the deen, right? Because it's quite stressful, it's quite distressing when you're hearing all this negative stuff, and then if you're tackling it head on, it is tough. So a lot of people feel like they need another outlet to kind of feel better about themselves, right? And that's what Infeed came, is to kind of spread that positivity in a way that it gave Muslims, general Muslims, and not just those who are practicing and, you know, 5 times a day in a masjid or anything like that, but just the normal Muslim person to feel proud about their deen. Yeah, give them a sense of honor, give them a sense of izzah. That's what it's all about, especially in this day and age. So when someone goes to work, they feel like, you know what, I am a Muslim, this is my name, and I'm proud of it. And then on the flip side is, how do we portray ourselves to your colleagues, to your neighbours, to the non-Muslims at work? Is the best way is practice what you preach.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't need to preach per se to say, yeah, all right, Islam is the only religion and Allah is one and Prophet ﷺ is the last messenger. Obviously, that is the core of the deen, but it all comes in terms of our characteristics, the way we carry ourselves, the way we speak with each other, the way we treat each other. And I think that's what it's all about, is to show those case studies whereby for you to be a Muslim, to spread the beautiful deen of Islam, it's not about, all right, to spread it we need to pray salah in a certain way, or we need to give zakat at a certain time, but it's just our actions, right? And I think those stories have gone viral, a number of stories over the last few years. And even now we're coming across, all right, this person's, so there was one guy who was working, one brother who was working in a supermarket.
Yep.
And as he was doing a delivery, the house was on fire, so he went in and he saved the family, right? And then he cracked on. It's not like he stood there and took selfies or anything like that. He just went back to his job. And they go like, how did you feel? He goes, oh, that was the normal thing to do.
Yeah.
That was the human thing to do, right? So there's a number of case studies. I could just do a podcast on that myself, right? In regards to
so
what
you want to
we've
take over the
received,
podcast now?
Basically, yeah. I just want that chair of yours, but nah, it's all good. It's all good. That's for next time. But the way we see it is that we can reach out, like you said, to the thousands, the millions of people out there in regards to what we're doing, and making sure that we're relevant. I think that's really key, because what we don't want to be is outdated, right? We want to be speaking about issues that are impacting especially our youth in this day and age. And like you said, you know, it's a good point regarding social media isn't just for the youngsters, right? I know elders who are more active on social media than me, right? Yeah. And they take everything as gospel, right? So like as soon as they see something, they might share it. And that's why we want to counter that stuff, that we're an authentic platform whereby everything that we do is verified, right? We're very, very strict on that. So anything that we publish, we'll go through thorough checks to make sure that it's not fake news.
How much time and effort does that take though?
Depending on the content, but sometimes it does. We've got a good network, alhamdulillah, right? So over the time, people know Infeed. So those who message us or give us information, we need to verify anything with scholars, with activists, people in the media. We get to know it quite quickly, right? But then again, there are some times when we just need to make sure the story makes sense. So if we can't get hold of a person in regards to that story, right? It could take a half a day or full day. So we could easily publish it and say, yeah, this took place, but we just want to make sure that everything is verified. And I think that's what gives us that reputation to everyone around, that, you know what, anything that comes on Infeed is going to be legit. Yeah.
It's important that happens. Like, that process is so important, and it's what a lot of Muslims fall prey to. Like, you know, you just come across some article, something in the news, and boom, that's it.
Yeah.
This, you know, I don't know, but like, this is crazy. Remember the Oreo thing?
You know what? I was just
Everyone knows what you're talking about. That.
Yeah.
You know, Oreos are haram, basically.
Wait, are Oreos haram?
Oh, is it time for fatwa now? Yeah.
It's going to charge you.
No, because I'll be serious.
We don't do fatwas on the
the amount of Oreo birthday cakes I see posted on Instagram, it's a
Alright, let's just say one thing. Okay, we'll come back to that.
We're about to lose half of our viewers.
Alright, so if you want to find out if Oreos are halal or not, stay tuned to the end of the podcast. And not everyone has to stay tuned, yeah?
Someone's got an Oreo biscuit like,
waiting for it.
I said Bismillah,
But, you know, basically, what I'm trying to say is that we'll come back to that. But it's the fact that one person posts something, one person posts one thing, and like you said, everyone takes it as gospel, and it starts getting shared, and people are going crazy. There's outrage about something, you know, whether it's something is haram or whether it's, you know, something has happened to this particular individual, right? Yeah. Everyone goes crazy, and it's like almost we're craving it. We want to gossip. We want, you know, we love being the first person to share it. You know, every Ramadan, as an example, confirmed, you know, the moon has been sighted, it's Ramadan tomorrow, and then literally I'll get a message 2 minutes later, sorry, I got it wrong. Like, I know, like, there's certain people that I get messages from every year, they just want to be the first person to spread it. So why can't you just wait? Like, everyone's going to find out anyway.
It's true.
Yeah, if you don't share it, Islam is not going to collapse, the deen is not going to come to an end. You see what I mean? Like, don't worry, inshallah, it will be confirmed very soon. So this is what we have to be very careful of, in particular with social media and stuff, don't just share anything and everything, especially matters of the deen. Like if you're sharing a hadith, if you're sharing a fatwa, like something is halal haram, these are very serious things. For you to lie against the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, and I know we don't do it intentionally, we don't do it with that intention, but that's basically what happens when you share a hadith which is not actually verified, it's not from the Prophet, it's not authentic, then it's almost as if you're lying against the Prophet, right? Or fatwas and stuff like that. You have to be very careful with these things in particular. Like Allah says in the Quran, famous verse, everyone knows it, that if a piece of news comes to you, in ja'akum fasiq binaba fatabayyanu, just verify, clarify things, because you might just end up causing a lot of fitna in the community, right? So again, bringing it back to social media, just number one, be very careful. Alhamdulillah, that's why I feel like we do very well here, getting things verified by whether it's a scholar, getting things verified by people who, it doesn't have to be by a scholar. Allah says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Just ask the people of knowledge regarding that particular field if they do not know. So there's always a story that's mentioned under this verse. You might have heard it before. The story goes that once a man came to a scholar, and he said that, is it true that the Quran has the answer to everything? And the Shaykh said, yeah, most definitely. So then the man said, okay, fine, if the Quran has the answer to everything, then answer this question for me from your scripture. How much wheat and stuff does it take to make X amount of bread? Is that in the Quran? Go on, give me the answer. So the Shaykh was like, okay, give me a second. So he went to the local baker. He asked him the question, and he got the answer. He came back to the man and said, this is how much it takes to make this amount of bread. He said, no, that's cheating. You said it's in the Quran. The Quran should have told you how much it takes. And he said, yeah, the answer is in the Quran. The answer is, Allah said in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of that particular field if you don't know. So I went to the person who's qualified, I asked the question, and I got the answer. That's how it works. So it doesn't have to be, you go to the Sheikh, give me the answer to this. Okay, what car should I buy tomorrow? It's
just like, I don't have a driving license.
I know, right? So it's like, just make sure you verify from the people who are best equipped to deal with that particular thing, and that's what, coming back to what you're saying, basically, I feel like that's what, alhamdulillah, that's what we try to do. We will make mistakes. We're human beings at the end of the day. The people behind Infeed were human beings, so we might make a mistake here and there, but inshallah we are, we're humble enough to accept that mistake if it's pointed out, and we'll say, okay, you know what, we'll take down the post,
of course.
And we'll re-clarify, etc., etc., and we've done that in the past.
Do you know what really annoys me? What really annoys me, right,
is the fact that you're sitting in my seat.
Listen, you started off with that. You seem to be loving your new seat. What really annoys me is you can say anything, right? You can make anything sound factual and like the truth, as long as there's a picture of Morgan Freeman next to it.
That is deep.
It's like you just go through your newsfeed and there's Morgan Freeman's face and something beside it, like, don't eat lettuce, it'll make you fat, and nobody eats lettuce because Morgan Freeman apparently said it. Anyway,
just on that though, right? I wanted to, because normally when you do the intros with a guest, right, you get to know about the background and context. But I think it's good for the viewers to know about you as Shabbir, like who you are and what you're about, because I don't think you've ever introduced yourself, like in terms of.
Not on the podcast, no. I haven't.
So like, I think this is the perfect opportunity. This is your moment. I wouldn't say this is your life because you're still young, mashallah. Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah,
like fit on the spot.
Yeah, but like
your things distract me. This colour's distracting me. By the way. For anyone who can't see the podcast, if you're just listening,
he's dressed like
Sa'id is basically like a Ribena, isn't it? Basically Ribena. It's some purple hoodie. Anyway, keeps it straight. It looks nice, though, mashallah. So what were we saying? You want? We should have done this at the beginning, man. Come on, we're having a deep conversation here. We were about to find out whether Oreos are haram or not.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. We need to know if you're qualified to tell us if Oreos are halal.
True. All right. So if you want a brief intro about me, basically, let me tell you how without finding too much about me, let me tell you how I got here, Infeed. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about that first. So, because a lot of people ask me, how do you become a podcast presenter? Yeah, so with me, basically, I've always loved presenting So I've presented on TV before, on like TV1 and Islam Channel and things like that. I've done a lot of it over the years.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've enjoyed, whether it's like Quran competitions, etc. So obviously I've been practicing, something you start enjoying. So with the podcast, it was just as simple as, Infeed. I know some of the brothers behind the scenes, know some of the brothers that are in this room, but you can't see on the camera right now. MashaAllah, they're so humble that they don't want to be shown on camera.
We'll give them
but
a shout
It's
later.
all good.
Yeah,
It's all good. Might make a special appearance later. But yeah, it was just a matter of, okay, podcasts are a thing now. Everyone's listening to podcasts. How can we do something differently? And alhamdulillah, had that conversation, and we decided that we're going to start the podcast. I jumped on as a host. So when people ask, how do you become a podcast host? It's not like you don't apply for a job and stuff like that. It's not like that. It's end of the day, anyone can start a podcast. You just need to get your phone out, press the record button, talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, and upload it on a website. There's plenty of apps and sites out there. But yeah, that's basically the podcast side of things. As for like studying and stuff like that, basically one of the reasons why I love interacting with a lot of our guests, especially when they're from the background of like scholarly background, is because I just love learning from people. So alhamdulillah, I think it was about 14, 15 years ago, I memorized Quran in Leicester Sharif. Memorized the Quran there when I was about 15 years old. Then I moved to London about 7, 8 years ago, studied at Ibrahim College, did a whole Alimiya program. Then that was a good 6-year full-time course, Arabic language and everything else. That's where I met some of the brothers from Infeed and got to know some of the beautiful brothers here. And yeah, that's it really. I mean,
alhamdulillah. And
hopefully that's enough.
And that's really good. I thought it's good for the viewers to know a bit of your background, because it's about connecting the scholars, future scholars and students of knowledge, to the people out there, right? Because I felt that there was a bit of a disconnect, right, at a time when scholars were seen to be at a certain level and they couldn't connect with the local community for whatever reason it was, right? And now, like you said, alhamdulillah, you've had a number of guests, a number of scholars, but also students of knowledge, whoever it is, but it shows that everyone can have a conversation.
Yes.
Yeah? We can break down those barriers and have just an open discussion, open dialogue about whatever topic it is, as long as it benefits us, obviously.
I think that's been there for a long time now, where people have even felt, I don't know if it's the right word to use, but essentially afraid of approaching scholars because they felt that this question might not be right, or I might not say it right, or is the fact that I'm approaching them right. And alhamdulillah, we've seen a change now over the past few years where I think social media has played a role in it as well, because you get to see a different side to the shuyukh that you didn't before. Where like, oh wait, they posted something funny. Oh, they laugh. They have a sense of humor. They're approachable now. So maybe I can ask them this random question about a toothbrush that I didn't know about before. Do I have to use Miswak toothpaste? All these random questions that you had in your mind, like, but you thought it's not serious enough to ask the scholar. But alhamdulillah, I think Infeed, the podcast, has definitely played a role in that. And I think we're the way that we're directing people now, or the avenue that we've brought them to, it's a case where we've made it so that it's easier for people emotionally to approach the people of knowledge, whether it be the imam or the ustad that they go to or a scholar. It's easier for them to approach them because they see them as a member of the community now, rather than somebody who's at this really high position that they as a random person feel, I can't step to that level. I don't feel right to go and ask them whatever question I have or whatever worry I have. And I think for a long time now, we've seen a lot of problems within our communities because of that disconnect between the community and the scholar. And on that note as well, I think a lot of people may have actually been quite pleasantly surprised when we launched the first Sisters Only podcast as well. Sa'id, if you could tell us why we ended up launching or if both of you want to tell us, why did we end up launching the first Sisters Only podcast? Like, how did that come about?
I think there was a discussion amongst us that, alhamdulillah, the podcast was really successful as soon as it started, right? But there was a space, and there was a needed space, right, for sisters to speak and have discussions and to spread their knowledge to the community as well. And unfortunately, like, it's easy to kind of get in contact with scholars, male scholars, shuyukh. They're doing a lot of talks, they're doing a lot of events. But when it came to sisters, there weren't many. right? Like you'll see in a lineup probably about 5 scholars or sheikhs that are there, and then maybe one sister who's going to be talking for about 5-10 minutes, right? And the sisters didn't feel like they could really connect. And then unfortunately on the other side, and no disrespect to anyone, but like you've got a number of MUAs, makeup artists, and hijab vloggers and bloggers, and I just felt like they didn't really tackle the issues that sisters were going through, right? And not just me, but this is the general feedback that we got from within the team and the community. And there was a space that needed to be made and created, and that's why we thought, all right, let's get someone who is knowledgeable, but is articulate, and who can break down those barriers and speak to various sisters within the community to inspire our younger generations, but also just to give basic knowledge, right? Because there's so much we could do in a podcast, right? Like you can learn. You were learning for about 7 years to complete your course, and even then you're still learning, right? We've got an hour, right? I think the sisters podcast is a bit longer, but alhamdulillah, it's good because it's needed. And when you see the reactions that we receive from the sisters who have come on, one as guests, but those listening at home, it's been amazing because there's not many out there. Like alhamdulillah, there are a number of podcasts amongst the brothers that are quite well known, but we haven't come across many consistent podcasts for sisters, right? Yeah. And I think that's what's needed, is to show that there is more to sisters. And again, this whole misconception that women are oppressed and Muslim women, they're only supposed to be at home in the kitchen, all that kind of rubbish. When we've had people who are so inspiring, right? The sisters who are excelling not only in religion,
head teachers of schools, and sheikhas, and so much, alhamdulillah. And you know what you mentioned about, I know we say it a lot that there aren't enough female scholars, etc., people of knowledge, which is true to a degree, but I also feel like because so many of them have been ignored for such a long time, we just don't know of them. There are actually a lot out there, but because the space has been so male dominated, not shy, as men here, I'm not going to shy away from that. It has been male dominated, and you're right. A lot of the times, a female has been brought on just to fill the gap and to say, yeah, we brought a female on and give 5-10 minutes there. No, they have studied, they are extremely talented, and in fact, if anything, there's more of them than us anyway. So we need to give them that space. And that's why the Infeed podcast is filling in that gap, which is that, because over time, obviously, Ustad Fatima has done some brilliant work. Yeah. And a lot of the times, we as men just can't relate. Does that make sense? Like, if you ask me, bring on some guests who are female, I'd give you like 2-3 names and I'd run out. All of us are the same, because we'd be like, there's not enough. But actually, you ask a sister, she'll probably name so many, because she's in that space. She's connected with them in the masjids at events and stuff like that. So I feel like that's the great thing about having the female presenter as well, is that she can relate, and when they get talking, there will be certain things that we just can't relate to.
Yeah, of course. Does that make sense?
Alhamdulillah, that's why I feel like that side, and that's why the sisters podcast, even though we've had very few in comparison to the podcast with the brothers, I feel like it's done so much better because our sisters have just been waiting for this. And alhamdulillah, finally it's here, and the conversations that they're having are brilliant. And I think for men as well, it's amazing to just see, wow, a female who's memorized the Quran, a female who has been successful in this field, a female who's a scholar. For us, it's actually opening our eyes. And alhamdulillah, I feel like that's where that's where they're doing really, really well in that regard.
And I think just on that as well, because Islamophobia is prevalent right now in community and in this society, right? And most of the victims are sisters, right? Because they're seen as easy targets, vulnerable, and whatnot. And if we don't give them that space to discuss and have dialogue and show the community exactly what they're about, what they've achieved, then we're kind of falling for that narrative, right? And I think that's what we need to do. We need to control that narrative, essentially, and to show that, look, as you can be a practicing sister, right? But you don't have to compromise on your aspirations in life, right? If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be, even if you want to be a housewife, there's nothing wrong with any of those, as long as you do it in to the best of your ability, right? And we've got a number of case studies. I think there's a waiting list in terms of podcasts for sisters, right? And like Ustad Shabbir mentioned, is that we won't be able to relate to many of the issues because we haven't gone through that cycle in our life, right? Whereas they know exactly what they've had to go through. They've seen the challenges. You know what? It's tough for them. It's really tough.
It only dawned on me. It didn't only dawn on me, but like there was on Saturday we were doing an event with a different organisation, a seminar in Balham, and I think the hall that we're using is the first time that everybody was sitting in the same room basically. And all the sisters that arrived to this hall, they've obviously been there for other events as well. They kept going to the back entrance, and then we had to tell them, no, it's this way. One sister, literally, she was like, "Oh my God, Alhamdulillah." We're like, "What's up?" She's like, "No, usually we have to walk all the way around to the back. This is the first time we've gone through the main entrance."
Okay.
And it's like, as a guy, I would have never thought of that.
Yeah.
And the difficulties that must occur through there. And then I went to look for the back entrance, and it's like, it's just such an inconvenience for pretty much no reason. It's like the main entrance, it was just so much more easier for everyone to go that way. But the sister was just so overwhelmed and filled with joy that for once she was allowed to go through the main entrance. And as a man, you'd never really think about these things. The sisters that we have, the women, they're the ones, they face the challenges, and I think Alhamdulillah Infeed has given them a platform to address them, to address multiple other issues, and to provide that platform for the ustadas, the sheikhas, etc. that we have in the community. And we've also, Alhamdulillah, just launched our page to help support the podcast further, launchgood.com/ilmfeed podcasts. And I think it's a beautiful thing for the listeners, especially those who really appreciate the podcast, to get involved in. And Brother Shabbir, I want you to tell them why they should support the Launch Good campaign for the podcast. Because honestly, I think the amount of people that are inspired by this podcast in different ways, is like, if you can grab a piece of that pie, that reward pie, you should seriously get on it right now.
Definitely. So I think, listen, look, the thing is with this podcast is that, alhamdulillah, we've already spoken about the reach, okay? And we've said that can be used for education, for da'wah, whatever it might be. Because of the versatile kind of variety of guests that we have, alhamdulillah, there's a benefit for everyone now with the Sisters podcast as well, even more diverse, reaching out to more people. I would say, listen, one of the questions that Brother Toyris asked earlier on is that, okay, so if I'm not on social media, if I don't want my face on there, then how can I still reach out to people? It's by supporting the people who are already doing something. That is genuinely the best way. Okay, like within our community, Muslim community, if someone is doing something well, then instead of us replicating the same thing and trying to do that same thing, right, why don't we just support the ones who are already doing it, isn't it? It just makes sense. Why does it need to be 2 or 3 of something when it can just be one and people get behind that one thing and support it? Similarly, right, if something, alhamdulillah, like Infeed is doing well, and it has been for the last 5-6 years, mashallah, then we just need people to get behind that and support it so that it can flourish further. So with the podcast, because of the reach, alhamdulillah, even just the clips, if you think about it, not the full podcast, but the small clips that go out, like Usman Bustansi, who's talking about the Ottoman method of Quran, or Brother Tufail, who's speaking about his struggles and how it's touching so many people. Like, can you imagine those clips have been viewed more than 4 million times?
MashaAllah.
Just think about that number. 4 million times it's been viewed. So it's actually, mashallah, amazing when you think about it. I just want you to think about that point, and that's all. That if you can't do it yourself, just get behind and put something forward so that we can continue to consistently put out these podcasts on a week. It's been, alhamdulillah, coming out every single week so that we can improve, we can get new guests on board, we can improve our facilities as well, and so that we can continue, inshallah, spreading the positivity that Infeed has been pushing for.
Inshallah. So the brothers and sisters who want to get involved, who want a piece of that reward, a piece of that pie, who want to spread that positivity by supporting the podcast, can visit launchgood.com/Infeed podcast. The link is in the description. So tell us, what's next? How are we going to make the podcast even bigger, even better? Where are we going? Where are we taking this beautiful, beautiful ship that we are on?
Firstly, I'm going to take my seat back and resume my hosting role. That's like short-term goal, inshallah.
We'll let the viewers decide.
Right, comment below, guys, inshallah, okay? I might just embarrass myself by doing this, but I want you guys to comment below, alright, who is going to be hosting in 2020?
Bro. Don't do this.
Is it going to be Brother Toyris, or is it going to be Brother Shabbir?
I can give people chicken
Let
wings.
us know.
Oh, you take chicken wings.
You're about to tell them if Oreos are halal or haram. If you really want your seat back, you better drop some next fatwa.
Alhamdulillah. No, I think with plans, listen, the most important thing with podcasts is consistency. That's number one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of things that have started, but because it hasn't been consistent, it's unfortunately come to an end. Though it was something which was very promising and something which was beautiful and brilliant, right?
Yeah.
With the podcast, our number one thing was consistency. It was like, whatever happens, every single week, inshallah, we need to put something out. Yes, there's been weeks here and there that we've missed out. But alhamdulillah, if you think about it, the fact that in a year, we're now on our 50th episode within the space of a year, that just shows in and of itself, right? That we've been pretty consistent, alhamdulillah. So the aim is to continue that consistency. That's number one.
Inshallah.
Number two, inshallah, is to bring in new guests, and guests again who continuing that diversity basically. Where again we're not just bringing in shuyukh, etc. We want to bring in a range of people. And again, I just want to just touch on this point for a second. Is that the process behind which guests that we pick? Some people might think, do you only pick guests who are just famous? They got a large following, so that it can boost the podcast and things like that. Actually, you know what? Alhamdulillah, we don't do that. And if you just look throughout the last 50 episodes, you will find a very good balance between, yes, there are going to be some very well-known people on there, people who you probably are following on social media, but then there's going to be some people who I'm pretty sure you've never heard of before, because they're just not out there on social media, but they were willing to come on the podcast and share their story. And again, that's the beautiful thing about this podcast, is we're not just picking people who have a large following. Yes, inshallah, that helps, great. And there's many people out there doing great work who happen to have it. But I'm telling you, there's so many people out there who aren't very well known, but subhanAllah, the work that they are doing and their story, if you hear it, it will just be far more effective than just having someone who's got a large following. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's right. That's
So we need that balance. The balance is there. So when we pick guests for the podcast, trust me, I don't just look at, let me just check their Instagram profile. If they don't have more than 50,000 followers, I'm sorry, you can't come on. It doesn't work like that. We've had guests who don't even have social media.
Yeah, that's right.
We've had that before in the past, right? What we look at is, okay, which person can come on this show, has a story to tell, can leave the viewers inspired, and can leave them with something to take away by the end of it. If you fit that criteria, then khalas, inshallah, we will consider having you on the podcast, as we've done before. And alhamdulillah, that's what I felt has worked, and that's what we want to continue doing, as well as, yes, bringing those international guests. Alhamdulillah, we've had guests from Canada, from Australia, from the USA, from all parts of the world, and we want to continue that. So that's like I would say the short-term realistic plan for us in the meantime, to continue with that consistency.
On that note, what I'd really love to see, and from the viewers, especially the listeners, is if they could comment and let us know which podcast or how the podcast overall has positively influenced their life, or what impact it's had on their life, if any. We've got those regular viewers who listen in, and I know that there's going to be some change or another that this podcast has had on them, even if it's just feeling better.
Yeah.
Wallahi, we don't pay enough attention to our emotions at times. And I think channels like Infeed, the stuff that we put out there, it helps our brothers and sisters, it helps our listeners focus on things that we often neglect. There's the religious aspect, but then there's also the personal aspect. And the guests that we are bringing on, they're highlighting a lot of this stuff for us, alhamdulillah. So alhamdulillah, we've covered where the podcast has been, where it is now, where it's going, what the reason that we've got Infeed around. Sa'id, I'm sure you can actually tell us. I'd love to hear, what is our reach right now? How many people are we reaching around the world? And what countries are we most popular in?
So as a reach, in terms of followers, we've got about 1.7 million on all platforms.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, so
Wow,
alhamdulillah, and that's grown rapidly over the past year.
We could start our own little country.
Yeah, for real, man. Like an ilmfeed country, we just need to find an island that we can take over. Do you know what I mean? Just swing that globe around and we'll just point out a spot.
Launch good campaign, buy an island.
But alhamdulillah, for me, it's not just about figures as well. Like I can go on all day again about figures and statistics, right? But at the end of the day, as Shabbir mentioned, it's about the quality, right? Quality is key over quantity, right? We can post, say, about 20 items a day on Infeed, but instead what we want to do is to focus on quality content that is shareable, that people can understand, people can comprehend it and benefit, right? Yeah. And that's what makes our content like at the top in the sector. People are more than happy to share it. People are more than happy to get involved in it. And like you said, you know, about people who are, in terms of emotions, right? Mental health is on a rise, right? And so many people are going through it, and only now people are speaking about it. And we're an outlet where we've spoken to activists, active people in the community who say, you know what, when we need a positive hit, we're going to the Infeed feed just to see something and to inspire us, or to say, you know what we're doing, it is tough, but alhamdulillah, we've seen the benefits, right? We've seen the good that we can do as a community, that it's not all doom and gloom. And I think that's what we're all about. In terms of followers from around the world, alhamdulillah, like we've got a huge reach not only in the UK but in North America and in US and Canada, in the subcontinent, in India and Pakistan, also in the Far East, in Malaysia we've got a huge following over there, and also in parts of Africa, literally everywhere. And when you see people who comment, they're like, yeah, oh, my name is so and so and I'm from this country, right? And you just get loads of people commenting, and it's very easy for us. So when we do want to do a shout out to ask people for some information from a particular country, we'll be able to find them, right? And that makes our job easy, alhamdulillah. And I think that's what it is. It's an effort. It's a community effort.
It's a community effort. You can see that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what we want to do, is to show that it's not run by just a few. This is for the many, right? I know I should have said that before the elections, right? So it's for everyone, right? It's a platform that everyone can benefit from, inshallah. And if we're able to do that and achieve those goals, I think then we've kind of done our job here, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Now to the very, very important matter of Oreos.
Forgot about that one. Yeah. Listen, I'll just give you a basic principle going forward to make this easier for you. There is a huge difference between something which is halal and something which is halal certified. Okay. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a difference between something which is actually halal, permissible to eat, and something which is halal certified. What's the difference? Is that there's many things out there that are halal.
Right.
Yeah. Is an apple halal? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can eat an apple, right?
Depends.
Does that? Okay, unless it's been dipped into something else. We're talking about a general apple you find, yeah? Now, does every apple, is it going to be halal certified? Is there going to be a sign that says on there halal?
I don't see any apples that are halal certified.
Right, exactly. Well, actually, I was in Malaysia recently, I told you guys, and literally the bottles of water says halal certified on there. Your Coke, Pepsi, everything has halal. So I was like, well, these guys take their halal very seriously,
they're
man.
probably the most serious in the world.
Yeah, literally.
Wait, but the bottles of water?
Yeah, had halal on there. I'm being serious.
You know what would be funny? Like, if they had, like, a bottle of water that had Zamzam in it, and then it had the halal certified.
Halal Zamzam. But yeah, so that's the difference.
Yeah.
The difference is that just because something isn't halal, so that doesn't make it not halal anymore. Okay? What makes something halal is, you know, there's different conditions, okay? Obviously, when it comes to meat, you have to be even more particular because of the way it's been slaughtered. So with things like Oreos or other things, just because the halal certification has been removed, that doesn't now make it haram. You see what I mean? There's bread out there, okay? Certain brands of bread in the UK that is halal certified. If tomorrow that certification, what they call it, like... I don't know what authority or something. If they tomorrow pull, or the deal breaks off between the two, then does that make it haram? No, it doesn't, because the ingredients, everything is still the same. And I don't know why we're talking about this in so much detail on a podcast which is about ilmfeed.
Because the people are gonna vote.
All right, okay.
And if you made Oreos haram, your seat is mine.
As you saw from my answer, I never said whether it's halal or haram. I said you take that principle and you apply it going forward.
So
Halal,
digestive
that's
biscuits are halal.
We can go into, I don't know if these ilmfeed mugs are halal. I don't know. I hope they are. I don't see any certification on them. So.
Okay, so if you're listening and you're wondering whether the Oreos are halal or not, basically, you can probably carry on eating them. Make sure you make like plenty of dua beforehand, and like if you really just want to eat whatever, right? You should don't listen to this podcast.
Your only that's a really important point though. Like your only religious advice, spiritual advice, should not come just from a podcast. You should always speak to a person of knowledge in person, local imam. They will know better. Because we don't have a time in a podcast to go into detail. So even previous podcasts, a really good point that we've discussed certain issues and matters. We've discussed marriage, we've discussed divorce, we've discussed Quran, we've discussed so many things, right? But it's a 1 hour podcast at the end of the day. Yes, we had someone who was qualified, but how much are they going to cover and clarify in an hour? Yeah, so you always need to go and ask someone, like we said, in that field, inshallah. That's our disclaimer from Infeed.
Yes, and don't take anything I say as advice at all. Okay, you can have the chair back now, bro. This chair carries a lot of weight, not just because I'm sitting on it.
Well, alhamdulillah, I think the other thing I want to point out is that the team for Infeed isn't just us three or the Ustad Fatima, and you've got Sister Darren who's behind the cameras as well, doing a lot of great work, but you've got a couple of individuals here. I'm so tempted to grab this camera, right, and just move it around and show them, but I'll probably break it, so I won't do it. But you've got Shaquille, who's been doing a lot of filming, mashallah, and
Bro, I was going to say, you would definitely break the camera because the tripod at the moment is being held together using a plastic bag and rope.
Oh yeah,
we need you guys to go to the Launch Good campaign.
Okay, so please donate generously. Yeah,
we should just take a picture of that right now. Just put it out; it will go viral. And then,
and you've also got Rafiq, the founder of Infeed, mashallah, and. You know what? I don't think he's ever put his face on.
He doesn't. Right? He doesn't do it. One time, you know the video where we revealed the YouTube plaque that we reviewed? That's actually the YouTube sign's a mirror. Right? And I was holding it up. He's like, "Move it, bro. You can see my face." I'm like, "We're a Nicaragua sign, bro. You're making this difficult for me."
No, alhamdulillah. And I think it shows that we don't all have the same personality. Some of us are quite loud, some of us are quiet, we're all different. We've come up from different backgrounds, different areas, but the main thing, we've got one common goal, right? And I think that's where Infeed is quite unique in that way, alhamdulillah, right? Alhamdulillah. That we understand the dynamics of the things that we need to tackle, but we're all on the same wavelength, right? And generally speaking, social media platforms, they have people who are quite out there, quite loud, quite confident, but we've got a good mix here. Like the founder, Rafiq himself, is like, he doesn't want to be involved in front of the cameras or anything like that, right?
Stick.
Yeah, literally the stick, honestly. That's why I think we should just keep a helmet on him all the time. Is it Salah counted if he wears a helmet like the stick?
I don't think so.
But yeah, so alhamdulillah, and I think that gives encouragement to others out there that, you know what you see on social media is not essentially reality, right? And although we're doing this, it's just a means of getting out there, right? And a means of, going back to your deen, studying, going to the masjid, whatever it may be, right? But alhamdulillah, look, we're Muslims. Allah's given us a beautiful deen to be proud of, right? We've got the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is amazing, which covers every single thing in our lives, right? Even when it comes to food, we're talking about food a lot today. I'm so hungry right now, right? But even when you see all these diets that are coming through, right? People becoming vegan one night, and then you got flexitarian, pescatarian, all this kind of stuff, right? But at the end of the day, with the best of diets is the sunnah diet, right? And that's
you know what? There's actually been in the past year, forget the 5-2 diet. I remember I was sitting in a hospital and they had BBC News health documentary on or something like that, and they were talking about the proportion of meat to vegetable to fiber and grains that you should have. And 2 years prior, we delivered a seminar on the diet of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what they were saying in this newfound diet that they were talking about, it was basically the diet of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You should have this much meat in a month, and the rest should be full of grains and fiber and nutritious fruits and vegetables, etc. I'm like, bro, we knew this long time ago.
Yeah, man. Alhamdulillah. No, it's right. 1400 years ago we had this, and we just need to go back to basics, I think, right? And when there's so much information out there compared to before, like from your phone you can access so much, right? But if we're able to kind of just go back to basics, go to the right people regarding the right topics, sharing good things amongst ourselves, right, we'll be able to go forward, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters, for tuning in to the 50th podcast on the Infeed channel. Alhamdulillah, we've come a very long way from where we first started. Thanks to your du'as and support. We'd love to hear from you, so make sure you comment in the comment section about how the podcast has influenced you, how you've benefited from it, what you love about it as well. For those who do want to share in the rewards and the growth of the Infeed podcast, please do visit that LaunchGood page, launchgood.com/Ilmfeed podcast. Jazakallah khair to my guests, brother Shabbir and brother Sa'id. You can have your seat back.
I'll be back, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Make sure you stay tuned, and if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do subscribe to Infeed. It's 100% halal. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.